All right, so you sent in this thought about democratic governments being like referees,
Okay.
keeping things fair, playing by the rules, and settling disputes. That is a really interesting comparison.
Yep.
And it really does highlight some of those core things that governments do.
Right.
But you know what happens when, like, the rules of the game themselves need to change?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
that's where things get
That's where the analogy
the more
kind of breaks down a little bit.
complicated, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about reacting to stuff.
Right.
It's also about,
Governments have to think ahead.
and
Yeah.
be proactive and think about all these, like, really big issues, like the economy and
Social welfare and
social welfare and, like, even global challenges.
like climate change.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, making sure everyone's,
Playing by the rules.
playing by the rules. It's also like shaping.
It's like designing the game itself.
Right, like designing the game itself.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those, like, 4 main things that you mentioned
Okay.
that governments do that go beyond just being a referee.
Sure.
First up is protecting rights and freedoms.
Okay.
How does that go beyond just, like, setting basic rules?
Well, think about freedom of speech.
Okay.
It's not just about like being able to say whatever you want whenever you want.
Right.
It's about making sure everyone has like a platform to be heard,
Yeah.
even if what they're saying is unpopular.
Yeah.
It's about protecting those minority voices.
Right.
The dissenting opinions.
The people who disagree with what most people think.
Exactly.
And that's super important in a democracy
It's essential.
to have those different viewpoints out there.
Right.
Right. It's like making sure everyone has, like, equal access to a microphone.
Yeah.
It's not like whoever's the loudest
The loudest people.
gets to be heard.
Exactly.
Right. So what about providing public goods and services? How does that impact our daily lives?
Imagine like a world without public schools,
Oh.
without clean water systems.
Oh, yeah.
Or like roads that are all like messed up,
Yeah, those potholes.
potholes everywhere.
Yeah.
We just we take this stuff for granted,
Yeah.
but it takes a lot of like investment
Yeah.
and coordination from the government to make that stuff happen. You
Yeah.
know, all that stuff is at the backbone of a functioning society.
Yeah.
And it makes sure that everybody has at least like a basic standard of living.
Yeah, it's like creating the infrastructure for a good life.
Yeah.
Making sure that everyone has at least, like, the basic tools to, like, succeed.
Exactly.
So, you mentioned regulating the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that sounds maybe a little boring to some people,
It can be.
but I'm guessing it's actually pretty important.
It's super important.
Yeah.
Think about it like this.
Okay.
Without any regulation,
Yeah.
powerful companies
Mm-hmm.
could just take over like entire industries. Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they could, like, stifle competition
Right.
and, like, take advantage of consumers.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if, like, one company controlled all the internet access or all the healthcare.
Oh, wow.
Talk about, like, an uneven playing field.
Yeah.
So regulation, like, helps keep things fair.
Right.
It protects consumers from, like,
Yeah.
products that could be dangerous or practices that are, like, not good.
Mm.
And it prevents those monopolies, like,
Right.
where one company controls everything
Yeah. Yeah.
for, like, essential stuff.
Right.
So it's really important.
So it's like making sure that the game itself
Yeah.
is designed to be fair,
Mm-hmm.
not just that people are like following the rules
Exactly.
once it's started.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's promoting social justice.
Okay.
What does that involve?
So this goes beyond just, like, making sure everyone has, like, equal rights under the law.
Okay.
It's about, like, really looking at those, like, systemic inequalities.
Mm-hmm. Like things like racial bias in the justice system.
Yeah.
Or the gender pay gap.
Right.
These are like issues that are like really deeply embedded in our systems.
Yeah.
And it takes active effort
Yeah.
to like dismantle them.
To change them.
Yeah. And like create a society that's actually equitable.
So sometimes the rules of the game themselves need to change
Exactly.
to make sure that everybody has a fair shot.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that our listener had some specific concerns
Yes.
about, like, imbalances in society.
Right.
So let's unpack those a little bit.
Okay.
Let's start with the gap between the wealthy and the poor.
Okay, so to address this,
Yeah.
democratic governments often use things like progressive taxation.
Okay, now how does that work?
So that means like people with higher incomes
Yeah.
pay a bigger percentage of their income in taxes.
Okay.
And then that money
Wow.
goes to like fund social programs,
Right.
like food assistance or affordable housing or job training.
Okay.
And those programs help to reduce poverty.
And give people opportunities to like move up in the world.
Okay, now some people would argue that progressive taxation is like punishing success.
Right. I hear that argument a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not really about punishment.
Yeah.
It's more about like shared responsibility. It's recognizing that the
Yeah.
people who benefit the most from society
Right.
have like a greater obligation to like contribute to the well-being of everyone. You know, it's about creating like a more balanced system
Yeah.
where everybody has a chance to thrive,
Right.
not just the people at the top.
It's like recognizing that some people are starting the game with like
Advantages,
advantages. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you got to like
level the playing field.
adjust the rules a little bit to
Yeah.
make it fairer.
Yeah.
So what about healthcare access?
Healthcare is like super important
Yeah.
for a just society. A lot of democratic governments have systems
Yeah.
where everyone can get medical care,
Right.
no matter how much money they have.
Right.
And this can be done through like
Yeah.
universal health care programs or subsidies that help people afford private insurance.
So it's kind of like that referee idea again.
Yeah.
Like making sure there's a level playing field. But in this case, it's about healthcare.
Exactly.
And what about inclusive education?
So inclusive education is about like recognizing that like
Yeah.
every student learns differently.
Yeah.
And they have different needs.
Right.
So it's about providing like individualized support, different ways of teaching,
Right. Yeah.
and like technology to help people learn
Yeah.
so that every student can reach their full potential,
Right.
no matter how they learn best.
Regardless of their ability.
Exactly.
So like, for example,
Yeah.
a student who has dyslexia
Right.
might need like special reading programs.
Yeah, or like text-to-speech software.
Right. Exactly.
That sort of thing.
It's really interesting to see how all these different roles of government kind of like, yeah, they all work together.
They work together to
Yeah.
create like a just and equitable society.
Right.
But even with all those efforts, there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
What are some of the areas where democracies can like, you know, level up?
Okay, so one major challenge is campaign finance reform.
Okay.
So when like wealthy donors
Yeah.
have a lot of influence on elections and like policy decisions,
Mhm.
it really undermines like that principle of one person, one vote.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
reforms like public financing of elections
No.
or limits on how much money people can donate to campaigns
Yeah.
could help reduce the influence of money in politics.
Right. So it's like making sure the game isn't rigged
Yeah.
in favor of the...
The wealthiest players.
Right.
Exactly.
What else needs attention?
Political polarization is a big one.
Okay.
So when like extreme viewpoints
Yeah.
dominate the conversation, it becomes like really hard
Yeah.
to find common ground and to like make progress on important issues.
Oh.
So like things like
Okay.
encouraging dialogue,
Mhm.
promoting media literacy,
Okay.
teaching people like how to think critically.
Mhm.
Those are all super important
Right.
for like combating polarization.
It's like we all need to remember that we're playing on the same team,
Exactly.
even if we have different ideas about like
Strategies.
how to play the game, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, we need to strengthen those social safety nets. We
Right.
got to make sure that everybody has access to those basic needs.
Yeah.
Healthcare, education,
Right.
affordable housing.
So it's like recognizing that sometimes people need a little bit of help
Yeah,
to even like get on the playing field,
exactly.
right? Wow.
Yeah.
What a deep dive.
Uh-huh.
We started with this like simple idea of government as a referee,
Right.
but we uncovered so much more
It's way more complicated.
than just that.
Yeah. It's about protecting rights and providing services. And regulating the economy and promoting social justice.
And making sure everyone has an equal shot.
Yeah.
So thinking about all this stuff,
Yeah.
how well do you think your government is doing all this?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
For everyone listening.
And this was your deep dive,
Yeah.
tailored to your specific question.
Your interests.
We hope you found it insightful.
I hope so.
We always excited to take a deep dive into new topics.
Yeah.
So keep sending us your ideas.
Please do.
We love hearing from you.
We love to hear what you're curious about.
Yeah. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
This is DigitView.